다디야 디 가상다 gonda 잡지 도저로 무지 쳐안에 상만을 깔업 딱깔업삼다 가져다지 막 가추 안에 사무실에 펩송스 네 인두산에 다디 상문로 가부총샤 네 인두산 좀 붙일라 도지 거딘체 거딘체 감기엔 자와서인데 정말 다 슈주단다 드린 드네 나드 차려야 되네 네 시주 담제다 나드 차려야 시 차로 요래 드네 인주산에 the last session 누다 도스 인주산에 안는 도마를 당봉에 맞지 장원디 가장디 튠디 비자래 당봉에야 가장 루주시야 제마 루주 history history 가 도지시 라서 된 디젤이야 되네 저 티디 가장 미주도지 저 이티디 무투슈 라서 된 디젤이야 되네 가르에 가르에 투지 체셔야 알지 스카시지 라서 된 사르 라서
내가 말 가진 체스야 돼 저 rum시야 라라 라서
결혼하는 매
Good morning, everyone. I think it's only to say good morning. If not, then I would like to wish you good morning.
It's okay. It's good. I want to say.
So, we're coming to the conclusion of our program together here. Yesterday afternoon, you all had the opportunity to receive a teaching from His Eminence Dordzong Rinpoche. He gave a very profound Dharma teaching. I'm so happy that he did, and I would like to thank him for doing that. In terms of our session here this morning, I mentioned earlier that I would like to say some things about the history of Chod practice and the life story of Majig Lapdrön. So we will begin this morning's session, the final session of the program, with that topic. After that, I will return to the guiding instructions text of the 8th Karmapa Mikyu Dorje and his instructions for the 1-week-long retreat practice of Chod. And then finally, I have a few words of thank you to say at the end. And then once that's over, we'll all be done.
담보들이야다 가상 쉬비는 시리 다 죄세 죄디 아니 시제 잘하는 거지레스 아주디 루비신데 게스 좀 봤나 디난데 담주 동의 시제기 잘하는 예나로 진사레스
라서
드레인 두산다 가상 쉬비는 시 죄들이야다 포주의 모주 넘버 2수여체 되네 포주의 모주 니가 담바자는 마 규대바 지버도와
라서 담바상게다 담바상게
파담바상게
라서
다 파담바상게 고려야다 좀 마우시라 시에 먹어제
라서
다 드네마치 두산에 지 가시기 아주지 파담바상게디 자나게 아주 3대 배출다 젠 tradition 서로 가져다
라서 practitioner
젠 기출로 여러 자나 젠 기출로 디기 쇠되바 버레스 파담바 상게다 젠 기출로 쇠되바 버 보디 다르마니 직바레스
라서
딘데신이들 용데 유스레
덴데 덴켄요레
딘데
라서
이내 다티 컨디션이나 디 지당다 주도디지 남다르디조 참sam지 주도디조 디 가르 남다르디 시에가라 카브르지도와
라레
디 시디에 섬디 안도와지니 사자지니 안 도용도와
라레
다지 시외 넘버를 비때 유지를 시외 넘버 지때 양 유신다지리야 양 호란 가르주지 마시버체니 예데버버 근데 용도
라서
근데 두산다 텐덴스 게민도
라서
근데 두산 직전에 용식레디 이미나 다다 아주 투주 디비나 투주 토나 시에비나
라서
바 보디 다르마데단 디 타바상게디 지그레 시에고 좀 디스칼라 하면로서
라서
디 아주 샤올링기 요바 보디 다마랑 싱으로 봐
라
샤올링기
샤올린 라오
지당게 젠기 쇠되바 보체 샤올링기 마셜 아트 요바 디 콩가 담바 지지 제버사지 요르바게제
라서
마셜 아트 나디게제 망고야다
라서
다데 다 간다 샤올링기 마셜 아트 제바 요르다
라서
다 조디 공디 삼덴베 죽다르바
라서
나라 하샤 마하야나 하샤 마하야나 사디 베베데 가서 민다셔르바
라서
마다 코란 줄로 밀라 삼덴바스 라고라바
라서
데네 두산에 나와다 디 지버레스 라고도다 디 지버레스 누군도 데 뇌바데 테메데
라서
하고 오면도
라서
디지레 다 담바자간데 별다 팅 싱아지 페 말베다 이 싱아지 페벨로 유여레
라서
다다들 루주 먹으셔야 다들 시에 먹어 가나게 시랑 고좀도
라서
시에 먹어지
라서
다들인데 거스 바바디 아니 머지 랍지 되면 남다 도두지 다게 맛이 그냥 신의 신기 어르데 이네 한 가시에 신기 유지 말아
라서
되는 뉴스안에 머지 남시에 여 머지 남시
라오
대시샤체는 마지 그냥 줄래 시
라오
머지 랍정 남다
송기인 라오
숭기 전 저거만 당해
라서 쉐기
네 쉐기
So as we acknowledged previously, Chod is a branch of the broader tradition known as Shije, or the pacification of suffering, which was one of the 8 great practice lineages. We also discussed previously how Zhi can be classified into the 2 groups of Po Zhi and Mo Zhi, or male Zhi and female Zhi. And both male and female Zhi, as we acknowledged previously, come down to us through Padamba Sangye. As to Padamba Sangye, there are some scholars who have asserted that he is actually the same person who is known.
Some people.
Scholar, I knew you were going to correct me on that. Some people assert that he was the same person as the person known as Bodhidharma, the master who brought the Buddha Dharma from India to China.
Which one?
Bodhidharma.
It's the Zen tradition.
Or, so Bodhidharma is known as the founder of the Zen tradition, the founder of Zen Buddhism. So, Zen in Tibetan would be samten, which means meditative concentration. So in general, it's very difficult for us to examine claims like this because the lives of the great Mahasiddhas are very hard to track using conventional means, because sometimes the Mahasiddhas are said to have displayed the manner of dying in one place, but then appeared as a living person subsequently in another place. So it's very hard to track them using conventional means. This makes it difficult to explain their life histories in a completely, reliably accurate way. So we can't be so sure about this claim that Padamba Sangye was the same person as Bodhidharma. In fact, if you look at the chronology of the situation, and when Bodhidharma is said to have lived and so forth, then it becomes difficult, I think, to assert that Bodhidharma was the same person as Padamba Sangye, especially considering Bodhidharma's connection to Shaolin. Apparently, Bodhidharma was said to have been connected to the Shaolin tradition of martial arts, as well as the Zen tradition. There was also the famous master who was known by Tibetans as Hashang Mahayana.
Yes. Actually, Zen tradition, Hashang Mahayana tradition is same, but Tibetan call it Hashang Mahayana. Actually, it's not the true name.
They call his tradition Hashang Mahayana?
The pearl Hashang Tower is river. Hashang Tower is Zen Tower is river. That's done in a Hashang Sadi. Unajana the Jagget Holia energy, Kashu, Uma Hashang Sadi, some Kembodan, Tindela Kuar, Kembola Hashang School. Derma di Chulu Mimare.
So sometimes the Tibetans call the Dharma system of Hashang Mahayana the Hashang view, but that's really inaccurate because the Hashang's tradition was Zen tradition, was the Zen or Chan tradition. And so actually the Chinese word Hashang, it seems, can mean Kempo. So it's not
sometimes it's in the text they call it Kempo. Maybe these days Hashang means it's more like monk. Yeah.
So in any case, it's inaccurate to call his tradition the Hashang tradition because his tradition was the Chan or the Zen tradition. Therefore, in short, this assertion that Bodhidharma was the same person as Padamba Sangye is not so reliable or not so tenable. Dampa Sangye visited Tibet 4 or 5 times, and there are many stories about his life and deeds, but we don't need to go into detail about them here. We will instead now look at the life story of Machik Labdran, and many of you...
ngarang samjuru je da dus lugu li shimju che yusane phelia azuda yongda le ane phega namba sangye be chedi ane jagar ne chu tharje ane ji chegi be kape de jagar ne chu gyurne da chegi be gar jungolo de khungdo de jagar the yor ba la sa chegi khungdi jagar the lo la sa ngone chebina da jagar ne chu madar khongla But in our Sangi, which you tambo Janani, Puel Tarman or somebody. Lassa? That is a Sonsen Gabriel. She Lasse Cho Dendishu, Dindy Jassa Conjo Dendishu. Lassa? The princess, the Gabde. Lassa? Jana gave a princess Dendishu, and the Kazari. Lasse Cho Chosha number need Dendishu. Did the Chevacoli and the Nechene Sangi Temper. 가서 다야 공고 추버와 라서 디급리야 파지 당보 야나근 다 나바상게 비치 야나네야 당보 다르면로 섬르지 라서 디골이야 세브시다요 마네 라서 다 세브 비미 세브시자 메브치 다 이네 베나 송 지송 대전 갑리야 디 되면바다 제미바서 저 가자 투버 총으로 봐 라서 까말라실라다 하상 마하야나지 저바세 추이 저바세 라서 디갑리야 딱 간다 디 사미엘이야 하상이네 망고에 돼 야나그베 가져다 야나 잡아서 우리 가서 다들 그러지라고 야나그 추규인지베네 망고에 돼 라서 진다나신데 야가르기디 캠보다 베나 까말라실라 소브디 요르바 라서 드린두산에다 디갑리야 간다리야 베지 야나네 야 우마네 다르데베기 가르쳐지 추규 야나네야 다르데베 남베 추규인 생긴 직제 다 야가네 스타든 잡아서 가서다 진짜리 남베 추규 니첸 다 군이 받아 디지 모듈을 총네 봐 최기 줘버를 챘네 라서 다와는데도 근데 중단 대비는 당부 야나네야 다르면로 삼버지 라서 세상 우마데 띵규르 디즈 나놀이야 띵규르 닝버 디즈 나놀이야 되니 하상 마하야네 떠주기 빼자 망보여자 따와도 주제 빼자 텍스트 하상던 제베 야나 삼덴베 추루던 제베 텍스트 망보여자 띵규르남 라서 제마데 띵규르나 요마 시다하요마 라서 기상 퍼지 띵규르나 된수 있어 라서 가레는 하고서 우마 닝버 디즈나 여자 라서 베나디 내가주지 성부기 캠보 성부사디 벽이 셔다 통만도 버지 성부차대 얼바 템바 치다라 그거라 라서 벽이 셔데 통만도 버디 성부차대 요래 다 성부 캐럽 다 캐럽 가리 하고 마서 다가다 성부 캐럽 나네 깨라 첨부지디 가서 오면 좀 대리래서 요르바 좀 대리그래지 좀 대리그래지 리그래지 라서 콩게 제샤베 띵규르 가차요 라서 디나로드니 하상 마야네 삼딘비 소변디네 제샤 베샤 망부 토요 기산 디주 띵 아주 띵규르 나라 다 띵규 드라미데 망고요 디주나 파시 요마 라서 다 드리 두사 간다르야 우마 담부 디데지 종요에서 쓴 것도 봐 라서 아니 나 다나 지당 하상기 따와디 다 별이야 다 급디 뒤사는지 가져야 간다레 까말라실라당 까말라실라레 가져야지 최저바 치두산 까말 라실레다 가서 이제 갑대는디 하샹 마하야네 캠보지어로 봐. 다디 팜송으로 봐.
라서
그 저바chen 팜. 다른 저바 까말 라실레 저바 예연두산에 아니 야간에 다 가르쳐 다비 추루 쪼원한지.
라서
데들 총부로 봐. 다 간단해 지단게 하샹 그 3대 추루디 점바상게 좀 된데네 마 규니. 뱅근 파바 루루다 아리안 대와다 디네 다나시 직된베 때럽데 존 마 규니 총대바 딘지레샤
라서
디네 뉴스안에 코란 따와랑 그 돈을 제베는 그 따와 야부 유세성도 스타 나란시다 유메다
라
나란시다 유메스
라서
이내한디 가르 이나 별레지 가르 치수 지가 하샹 그 따와스 유산디 지가 지 다와 데스 가르 다와 양타바 메인버들 지는 물지치기 알아봐
라서
제자 아니 참선 지 가르 차진다 조신디서 하샹 그 다와 레스 러변두산에 아니 한지 아주 차바 차게 전부터 저버신부터 하샹 다와 민비 주제 망고지 된들이 시대 알아봐
라서
다이는 오늘 전에 급 디디기 까말 라실레다 가르다 담 왜 가져야지 갑대 란딩이 하상기 캠보 코랑게 다왈는 르데 중요하나마도 지당 하상 코랑 다왈 야보면서 삼르지
라서
다딩 아주지 마시
마시
다 디급 디디 캠보를 줘 까말라실라는 냠 잡아채라 잡아채디 갑대는
라서
디디즈 노르 쇼면 코랑
라서
자선 자만 킨즈왕부 치준 자만 킨즈왕부 금봄 나로리아 하상 그 따와데 차게 준비 따와 렌동도를 지송샤
라서
차게 전부터 차신 더규 따와데스 차게 전부베 다이고네
라서
템베 딘데 가서 따와를 지레스 딘데 송샤 나간다 디 심죽 섬마르다 지 나다들 트레이닝 그 시에버다
라서
다다
라서
팽게메 칸시 다다 아스케시
Actually, before we get to Matje Glabdra, a few more remarks about the topic of Hashang Mahayana and the Dharma view that was associated with that figure. Of course, the commonly, or the general understanding that we have of the history of the spread of Buddhism is that Buddhism spread from India to Tibet in a way that was distinct from the spread of Buddhism from India to China. But I think if we look closer into this issue, that we can see some evidence that in fact Buddhism arrived in Tibet to some degree from China before the great wave of transmission of Buddha Dharma from India to Tibet. So, for example, we see in the history of the Dharma king Songtsen Gampo that he brought the great Zhou statue to Lhasa from China. He also invited a princess to Tibet from China. And I think that these things are in some ways indicative of some presence of Buddhism coming to Tibet from China before the main wave of transmission started directly from India to Tibet. We can consider this perhaps, I think it can perhaps be considered, this is just my personal thought, this can perhaps be considered, like for example, the time when Songtsen Gampo was bringing the Jo statue to Lhasa,
and building monasteries.
And building monasteries and so forth. The beginning of the spreading of Buddhism to Tibet. And in the early days, that was happening to some extent from China.
7th century, man.
Around the 7th century. So, at the time of it seems that at the time of the master who came to be labeled by Tibetans as Hashang Mahayana, who seems to have been simply a master who was holding the view of the Chan tradition, or a monk who was holding the view of the Chan tradition, it seems that around that time there were many people who were holding that lineage, that stream of transmission of the Dharma. And then around the same time, the Dharma began to be transmitted to Tibet directly from India as well. And it seems that these two traditions came into philosophical conflict with each other. And this philosophical conflict happened during the time of the Dharma king Chisong Detsen. So it's evidenced in the famous example of the debate between Kamala Shila and the monk who later became named by Tibetans as Hashang Mahayana. So I don't think it's the case that it was just this one monk who was holding that view coming from the Chan tradition, but rather there were many practitioners who were holding this view. At the same time, there was a stream of transmission coming from India, of course, starting at the time of Chisong Detsen. And those two systems came into philosophical conflict, so there were some Dharma debates that happened between these two groups. There was a great scholar, Rigbe Ralji, who made lists of all of the texts in the Tengyur, the collected translations of shastras or commentaries.
Maybe, okay, something like this.
Okay.
Something like that time, that Hashang Mahayana, that Kempo,
right,
that scholar is lose that Dharma Tibet.
Yes.
Then the king of the Tibet, that Songtsen Gampo, I think maybe, he supported the traditional directly from India. He just supported that and spread that tradition,
right,
rather than that, the old or maybe that tradition. Then also, actually in the old time, in the Tengyur, they also have some text composed by the Zen tradition, composed by some master of Zen tradition. They have a lot of the text there. But these days,
it's not in the Tengyur, you don't.
Not in the Tengyur. Somebody took it away, I think. But sometimes, okay, that is, doesn't matter, it's okay. Because the abbots, abbots of the Sengpu monastery. The Sengpu is the first shadow of Tibet, the
monastic college.
Monastic college. He is the one of the famous abbots of Sengpu. His name is Chomde Rigra. He has one the Karkasha. He composed
Index.
one index. Inside the index, they have lots of the basic meaning.
Titles of texts.
Yes, they're like this. And also, I saw one, the Jamaican Wangbo. He's one of the text. He says, actually, that Zen tradition is sort of Mahamudra lineage. Mahamudra lineage. That was charging the Gubaris, the Guji Sunsha, Dai Gubare Sunsha.
Lasso?
Tabe, Tegarbe Chikazu Chagachim in Suma, the in that Guni Chagachim, moderate child, regimental.
Lasso?
The regiment.
Lasso?
Mm-hmm.
So, Jiang Kensei Wangbo in his writing said that in some way you can say that the view of the Chan tradition is the view of Mahamudra in a symbolic way. So it's not a direct expression of the view of Mahamudra, but it is a symbolic expression of the view of Mahamudra.
I think they have some connection between Zen tradition and Mahamudra tradition. That we need to understand. Because sometimes the Tibetan, because the Tibetan, they have some sort of view that they think it's view of the Zen tradition. They have some problem. It's not correct, or it's it's not a sort of pure or something.
Yeah, it's not authentic.
Authentic view. Maybe that is because that time the Kamala Shila, the Cambodia, what is Kajua, Koran Shedan Mashe.
Lasso?
The Yonsigro, Kashegi, Koran, Tawang Winne, the Abu and the Shedan machine, it's something non depreciation.
Lasso? So,
Chongati, or the Kamala Shila Chonga.
Lare. So, eventually what happened, of course, was that, Kamala Shila was declared the winner of the debate, and then eventually the king chose that the stream of teachings that was coming directly from India would be the stream of teachings that would be the representative of the mainstream Buddhism in Tibet, and that was the view of Buddhism that was adopted for Tibet. And so because of that, people have come to think that the view of Hashang Mahayana was inferior, but actually it might not have been the case that the view was inferior, but the person defending it in debate didn't explain it properly, and that's why they lost the debate. So perhaps it's not so much of a fault with the view, but just the person, and this is of course eminently possible, that the person defending this view in the debate against Kamala Shila might not have been clear about the view that he was supposed to be defending, and didn't defend that view adequately.
Yeah, that's Maji love you drama. That Maji love you drama, the Kochungu did that was Lohaim and the Pur Lojol. Love Sadi and the Kajwata Niji Transuzilia Trumpres, Chazan go love you drama Sadi, Trunsa love Yenza, tea in the love you drama soon userba. And they Yabgit sand, the Yumgit sand to share more. But the Chidon Jigya she goes to Zana, 12th century, my 12th century, they were that 20 say.
So on to Machig Lapdrön now. She was born in southern Tibet in an area called Lap, and that's why she's called Lapdrön, or the torch or lamp of Lap. We don't need to go into the finite details of what her father's name and mother's name were at this point, but she was born in the 12th century, in the year 1149.
다 한다 그러나 충분히 이제 캐럽 첨부체 시럽 첨부체 안드레인 두산다 로숨 레베컵리아 아니 이게 정말다 다레 드메상아 다레다 시다 지 하르니스 요바
라서
나 라서보다 네 하르니스 든들라서베 가르주지 숭한 뇌셔바 다나신지 데티 내가 할이야 차차야는 좀 차차세심 네 정말에스
라서
아니 롱알 렘베컵리아 되네 융기 총네 다 공기 융기 총네 이게 럼네 아니 이게 캡 총네 아니 가르주다 다 림베첸 가르주다지 로제를 렘베컵도 봐봐 니머를 개동바 참니 로도바드네 융고 알았어
라서
개동바 이봐
라서
원더디 참니 다 이게 캡버시 로 캡버시 비찬
라서
근데 열어서
라서
제자
라서
디셰 뉴스단에 네 삼삼디 네 아바디스 대응
라서
가래상 아주 춘춘 거라 아주 난다 보고 망보 열어다 보고 구주지 열어봐
라서
구주에서다
라서
드네 뉴스단에 네 아베디 상원을 해야 돼 가서 이길라베 상원을
라서
때 7월 며칠지 고라랑 이길라베
라서
디나는디 예 스모티줄 이길라베
라서
지단체는 어저께 디두스단지 부모 에듀케이션 자 룩스시다요 말봐
라서
아니 부모 이길라베스도 디스 두자르스
라서 라서
가져오지 부모는 이길라면 가져오지
라서
보면서 알바지 저 오마르 쇼신 또 레거 레신 다된 지겨 알았다 신다든 담들 고마르슬라
라서
제자 디두스단 디스 지기야 미지 이길라면 가져야서 근데 지게지 중벌에 롱베나 제자한테 디던 데도가 예스모 충두에 이길라면 예 앞에 이길라면 니마를이야 딘 가르사디 가탕유와 빼마 가탕
라서
우름 지남다르바
라
다디 니마를 로 다디 두산 빼마 로신 딘산 간데요 가시
라서
나데 디두산 뭐 니마 딱바르시 니마를 차를 로 빼마 가탕
라서
드네 두산 다 텐더브 중임이다 가서 에듀케이션 디나는 아디디스 베 하르레스나 공기 윰디 이게 시에버레스
라서
이게 시에는 이길라고 알았어
라서
갑디 두산 이제 망부 이게 말했어
라
미세르 차리
라서
마신에 공기 윰디 축부 포머레스도 와
축구에 비모 라서
드네 디디스 타가면도
라서 구타키
디 마질랍기 드메 윰디
라
디스 축부는 이제 포머레스
라
제자 디스 에듀케이션 자 고급 라이브
라서 테네 하리니 사당 테네 도메송아 라서
된도를 로숨네
로송는 비카스 라서 Machik Labdran displayed signs of great intelligence from her earliest years. Even when she was 3 years old, she began reciting the mantra of Tara.
오마니 베메홈
She began reciting the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum.
and also Harinisa
Also Harinisa. And she began
뎀초르와 Harinisa 뎀초
prostrating to deities and so forth, showing signs of great faith and devotion in the Dharma. And then, when she was 5 years old, she began studying reading and writing from...
reading, actually reading.
Reading, okay. Okay. Reading from her mother, And this is a very remarkable point that really caught my attention. That she learned reading from her mother and became very proficient in reading, to the point that by the time she had turned 8 years old, she was able to recite the Prajnaparamita Sutra in 8,000 lines 2 times per day. So she became a very proficient reader. And this really reminded me of my father, because there were a lot of children in my family, 9 or 10 children, and my father would teach us how to read, and he would include my sisters. And this was somewhat controversial in my area because a lot of people thought that you shouldn't teach girls how to read. You shouldn't give girls an education. Some people even thought that that was a bad thing to do, to educate girls. They thought that you should just send the girls to milk the cows and do work like that. But they would say, why would you want to teach a girl how to read? Why do you want to get into that business? But my father didn't listen to that. He taught me and my sisters how to read. And of course, one of my sisters is with me here. And she became very good at reading, to the point where when she was at a young age, she could read the Pema Katang, the life story of Guru Padmasambhava, 1 time every single day. So she was a great reader back then. I don't know how she is these days. But in any case, this point about Machik's life story and the point about education was very striking to me, not just because she was a girl and learning how to read, but because her mother was the one who taught her. So her mother also knew how to read, which was very rare in those days, I think. And it seems that her mother came from a very wealthy family. So since her mother was from a wealthy family, she probably had more opportunity to receive education.
다 간다야데 머지 랍게 드라마 슈아디 간레스 충분해서 랍이나 급디 뒤산에 에네 고난주 최내르지 요아레스 최내
라서
라만르지
라서
이 라마디 조모지 주마지 요아레스
라서
주마지 디 뒤에 딱 이게 좀 망보지 않고 럽이임자
라서
이 가시 제자한테는 디 최내데 숨버스 저랑 그들베 보몬디 지단지 레미도스다 데 컨트롤마이네지 인사레스 그래서 얘는 몰이야베 가르쳐다 시럽 뭐 시럽 체다 주는 게 시럽 가르쳐다디 가르쳐다 얘말 랍든지 투사 말았다 근데 뉴스안에 몇 시럽디 에네 나라 매체받는 신 근데 그 시럽 가르쳐다 침보시다레샤스 근데 뉴스안에 민래야베 시럽 드메스 다고사레스 람네 근데 마질라비 드메 투스타오면로 드메스 시럽 드메
라서 난디기
No, nanti. Kuranzu lamandu tingi yubta.
And then later on, Machik Lapdran began studying reading with a master who was a nun, who she relied on as chune, which means object of offerings.
Chune chizo injil. Tachizo.
Chebene.
Family guru.
Family guru.
Family guru.
So this Machik Lapdran relied on this nun as the family guru, and she was teaching her reading and was extremely impressed by her progress. And at some point, this master told Machik's family, I don't think this is an ordinary girl you have here. I think she's definitely some type of dakini. Her prajna, her knowledge and wisdom, are like a blazing forest fire. And therefore, I think it would be good if she took the name Sherabdunme, the lamp of wisdom, or the torch of wisdom.
Yeah, that is it. 쟤네다 공로 주루기 딘도 에네 가셔야다 차당서야 돼 사지대로 전에 때 바제 때든 자방문시 진사도 임래 때든 자방문시 진행 륜도 에네 쇼네 에네 시럽이 버려두신데 윤겐딘 뒤섬이야 되는 로정나
가르기 로정나서
예 윤겐딘 뒤섬이야
getting to class
때 tel려 로정나
lesson
공로 주루기 딘도
lesson 되네 직부 토니 로정 낭송 나라
말대 자방문시 진행 군주
자방문시 진 lesson
때든 봐 자방문시 진 때든 봐
lesson
뒤 군주는 치네
lesson
윤겐딘 뒤섬라 로정세
lesson 네 사차리다 사차리
차당
lesson Then when she was 16 years old, she went to an area known as Jatang, and she studied the extensive middle-length and condensed Prajnaparamita Sutras with the master known as, with the treasure revealer known as Ngunshe Jen, a tertun or treasure revealer.
Yeah, his name is Ngunshe
Whose name was Ngunshe Jen.
자방문시지. 자방문시. 그러면 자방문시.
Lasso. Tertun Ngunshe Jen Mare.
His name is 자방문시.
Chapa Ngunshe Jen Lasso. So his full name was Chapa Ngunshe Jen.
문시 제 말이죠. 자방문시.
Lasso. So another correction, his full name was Chapa Ngunshe.
But he's tertun.
And he was a tertun, or a treasure revealer.
Yeah. Then 롭존 샤브리스. 윤긴디 뒤숨 롭존 샤브. 라사라.
하고서.
윤긴디 뒤숨 롭존 샤브리스 라사라. The studying prajna paramita gave the duba the jiwa.
Lare.
The 롭존 샤브리스.
Lare.
lapsaso.
Lapsa.
Okay. 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 다 드네 전에 간다 고 지다 럽도 중요 말데 이네 다 그런 연대 야부여비 인사 럽도 중요 텔럽에 대처버로 근데 중요 레스다
Lapsa.
다 디제네 에네 교된 소남라마사리 예 가산사리 교된 소남라마사리
Gökten Sunama.
다 딘존에 디 시제기 규바디 조디 교된 소남라메 중니 슈버바
Lapsa.
교된 소남라마사리
Karegi Gyuba.
시제기 규바디
Shechegi Gyuba.
감주 동해 시제기 규바지여바 다디 교된 소남라메 중니 슈버바 마질랍드응 디네 인디산에 다 교된 소남라메 중니 교된 소남라마 디다 드드드ingen dus labjanba
Lapsa. So she studied the extensive, middling, and condensed forms of the Prajnaparamita with Chapa Ngunshe, the tertun, and then later, from the master known as Györtun Sunam Lama, she received the transmission of Shije, the genuine dharma that pacifies suffering.
제가 안 가산디 시제 규바다도 두체봐 되네 다체 망보세네 군주장 망보제입니다 군주 망보제 곰 냠는 주바 망보체 다 디젤이야네 공다 니슈 저숨을 준비 qab이야 다 퇴밥 받아서야지도 퇴밥 받아서 미지 대단냠도 배가 가서 창서 겹지 대버렸어 퇴밥 받아서야지 문에체나 가시에기다 배발했어요 어디네 문에체빈데 벌써 야가르미입니다 야가르미 지 상계 퇴배 주발했어도 상계 퇴바서야지 이동 지어봐 지 주발했어도 제장 대단 창서를 겹지 창서 겹서 말다 창서 겹 냠도 쇼체 다세 숨총으로봐
라서
세니 지세머지 들지 children 숨 다도 스트롱레스
세지가 세모니
세머지
세모지가 세니
세니의 세머지
라서
인지를 봐지 야? 야. 다들 총레스 다 발랍샤다 다들이 아란이 지레자샤다
라서
네
Then when Machik was 23 years old, she met a man named Tupa Bhadra and married him, married with quotation marks around it, perhaps. Some people say that Tupa Bhadra was Tibetan, but actually he was Indian. And he was considered to be an emanation of the Yidam known as Sangye Tupa, or the Buddha
Kapala. Buddha Kapala, mas
Buddha Kapala.
Yeah.
Together, Machik and Tupa Bhadra had 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter.
nga ta tamadliya kongi da garshurdaji Tupa Bhadra chone yang kongi se tezu garshurdaji sogorba ta kon jibu sogorba majilabdu jibu sogorba dine indusa dine kongi mangboshida chong an tar gonglo sushi kable yang koala kyoa kene yangger ji ne nyemele ya Tupa kyende de pebres 다번에 서르 카말라서 버티줄 주바견 페브레스
마치키 라서
수주소시갈
라서 숨주소시 라서 근데 딩은라 보고든서 찍보거래
마딩에는 공기다 가서 다 가르줄 husband's lem버스 개민데 다 husband 랍션 갔었다 husband died
라서
근데 주산 코란 찍보기 엔다 보고든서 소가 공예지라 충분해스 다 디지를 고로 수주 수식qabla 양 코알라 교와제네 다 냉에메를 지춘 dim네 다 서르 카말라 소발 두바경아 페바레스
라서
다 페르카드 카나다
Kenny Tupa Bhadra Tongyakdi shortly after the children were born.
말아 디 shortly after 그지만 총 근데 그건 부수면다 데 고란 집이
마케공아 말해
말 제찬네 제찬네
니 제찬네
로카제 하고만 lots of questions maybe after some while then his husband is died. Then she need to take care the 3 children. It's some hardship, you know. Yeah.
So, just rewinding a little bit to the time before she had the children, after she received the Dharma transmission for Shije from Gyalten Sunam Lama, she engaged in a lot of intensive meditation practice. Then, at the age of 23, she met Tupa Bhadra, and they were to have 3 children together. But then, sometime after the children were born, Tupa Bhadra died, leaving Machik alone to raise her children. And she went through a very hard time having to assume this responsibility by herself. Then, at the age of 34, she began to feel heartfelt revulsion towards samsara, or renunciation towards samsara, and this caused her to leave her home and go off to many isolated places of solitude to practice in retreat.
다 바지 공 지로 직동이겨 주메 직스 대바바 공부종입니다.
라서
다들이네하다 뭐튜브 니즈 용도스 총로단 대로라
라서
민자와 이용되도 되는스도와 다들 요시 다들 시야만다 다 간다야 직동 니게 주매직 데데 주매직스나 0 1
0 라서 주매 라서
주매바
라서
제상 다 디갈이야 가르쳐다 다 간다야 주사데 퍼지 마제 코랑기 배 가르쳐 냠수용의 최래 수도와 주사데 조디 머지랍된 코랑기 다 가르쳐다지 조디 저 버르드 침배게 된데서 공발라 되네 다디 가르쳐 또버 율총네 디기 냠수용의 용최래스 용의 최래스 다 미세르치 다 버지 ngar jagala pe yons mara bandrchi da yons mara basang mara badaji tis tu kaju tegas shucham bo meabrchi da kanda nyamsu nyo chöres da
lasa
jesa da kona nyamsu nyo chöres 간다야 다 간다라 공기 규버트니 마 쳔네 초징네 가르주에다 지 품에기 가르주 프랙티셔너 디즈기다 가르주에지 가르주에 지 야게 요알레 펜도르 지 총을 봐.
라서?
은다나지 쥐디 아니 지 주다 리메 탐제래야 겹게 총알에.
라서?
아들이 뉴스단에 디 줄젤된 다가다 자신부시라 충분해스.
라서?
다 루규시라 신이 다마 시하고스래.
라서?
아마 신이야 보면 다. 아라니 디스 투바셔서.
Then, by some accounts, in the end, Machig Labdran passed away in the year 1201. But there are different assertions as to her birth and death dates. In particular, there are two different sets of dates that are asserted. But we don't need to get into those types of details. The Dharma tradition that she founded of Chod is said to be a tradition of direct experience of the meaning of the Prajnaparamita Sutras, a method for realization of this meaning to arise in one's mind stream. So her Dharma system was not prevalent previously in India, was not renowned previously in India. And her propagation of this system in particular was of great benefit to women practitioners, women who had a desire to practice the Dharma, so that it was very beneficial for them in helping women throughout Tibet who wanted to practice the Dharma. And of course, later on, her tradition of Chod came to be held and practiced within all schools of Tibetan Buddhism. So in short, it's a very precious and sacred tradition. So that's all I'll say about the history for now, and now we can return to our discussion of the instructions.
야, 다들 가서다 저기 친구 의식 주가리야. 다 니마 추바들라. 바지임래. 다 니마 추바들라다 저기 티 의식 주랑 냠내 제외 거리야. 다 변지 루진라 소바 제외 거리야. 지 삼동단로지. 되지입니다.
라서?
루진 되지.
라서? So now we're at the point of the eighth Karmapa's explanation where he's discussing the instructions for the sixth day of retreat, in which we enter into the main practice of Chod itself. So here he gives the contemplations for the practice of giving one's body or practicing the generosity of one's body, which in Tibetan is called lujin.
Oh yeah. That 남게 타는 년 심지엔 탐지 지 대화도 된데바 동해다 된데바 지송이 봐. 그래 봐.
라서?
되네 대인 대점도 마세베 다 남게 타던 냠베 심제 탐제 랑라 다 거진 쳐와 랑라 다 팬도 찬다 거진 쳐와 근데 인두산에 에 거진 쳐에 찬다 다 탐제래야 다 랑지기 룽아이 있음 게자다 탐 게외 자와다 제바 탐지 진보이나 진보 외스큐바
라서
다 진베 진거베 견전 찬데바 아 근데 인두산에 진고래서 룽아이 있음 게자다 제바 진고래서 대라야 내급도 진바다 터도도 진바 니야레스
라서
내급 마겐심전 담 내급도 지주도 가랬으나 되네 아주에 심전 탐지와 원동 니리기 가서 내급 심전 탐지에 변한 차장다 제공기 동에 세외 퇴당 다나신 타나양 변하지 뭐이 제주 선반은 이게라블라 와 되네 꾸르단 제뮤치야 랑게 류다 소 동원된데 수요하레스
라서
변나 랑리아 가서에 제주 선반 게럽 디주나로리아 랑라 당외 자남기 다 울랑연 주사네 안디 샤기시에는 우지마 당마 라소부터 되어야레스
라서
되네 뉴스안에 데 타나양 꾸르데 제뮤치양 ane luidang longzhe le chakwa mewa jimbatong. Zemushi sidusane just like how to say? Ta kanlo fun so. Fun jikashek teasing. Tijek chedo yimbinia jimbatang gares. Which is some. The Hindustane the Hindustane 지된 디 전충중지 이미네야 셴라 페나 랑그 류당 소당 다 롱저의 제발 착범해봐 다 짐바동아이 다디 그 내가 그 짐바동다는데 진짜 송도 라서 다 로장고 비 로장 남산지 동주 사데 깔아 가버려 봐 라레 이네다 로장 라서
First, we begin by reflecting on how all sentient beings, limitless as space, only want to enjoy happiness and be free from suffering, and are equal in that regard. Everyone is the same in that regard. Not only that, we reflect on how all sentient beings have been kind to us, have been our beneficiaries in the past, have been our benefactors, rather, in the past. And thinking of them in this way, we realize that they are the suitable recipients of all of our generosity in terms of all of the positive things that we possess, including our body, speech, and mind. Sentient beings are worthy recipients of these. They're worthy recipients of any generosity we can extend to them. Therefore, we must extend this generosity to them. And there are two types of generosity that we can extend: temporary generosity and ultimate generosity. In terms of the temporary or short-term generosity, we give things to sentient beings that will dispel their sufferings of being hot or being cold, that will dispel their sufferings of hunger and thirst. And also, we train our minds in the examples of generosity that were given to us by the great bodhisattvas of the past. So in the life stories of the great bodhisattvas of the past, there are examples of bodhisattvas giving their own body freely to other sentient beings, even if the request was only a joke or for the sake of teasing them. There are stories, for example, of bodhisattvas who were approached by people saying, "Please give me your head," and then without hesitation or attachment.
His enemy.
His enemy.
Just teasing him to give,
So that there was a bodhisattva whose angry enemy was teasing him and saying, please give me your head. And without hesitation or attachment, the bodhisattva cut off his head and gave it to this person. So, with the...
You know, that is going to cut off head and give it to, you know?
Lasso.
Chile Göndu.
Lasso.
Chile Göndu.
Lasso. Gyurtang Norsang.
Marmar. Cut off head.
Lasso.
Lasso. Yeah, something like that.
Lasso.
That is okay. It's good.
Okay.
Good. It's so just teasing you.
Yes. So yes, His Holiness was saying there must be some wonders going on if you could cut off your head and then give it to the enemy who had requested it. Something wrong about the way the words are put together there. But in any case, with the temporary generosity, even if something is of small, mundane benefit to sentient beings, if it benefits them, then we try to provide that to them, regardless of attachment of any kind for our body, our life, our possessions, and so forth. So here we train our minds in this way. It's difficult for us to immediately begin emulating the great bodhisattvas, but we begin training our minds in extending this type of generosity. So this is all under the category of temporary generosity.
다 털두디 진바동주디 샘제 탐제라다 갈치와다 가능했잖아. 드니 지 동해매베 대화 탐바 초도 교가 토야데 계셔버렸어.
맞아.
드니 대토베 된도 전주서버 정이기 다 랑기 규디 정규디 민진바 지녜 지 가서 풍봉하세요. 녜 수기 풍보세요. 진짜게 정규도 다도 민진바 랑게 류가 이종 롱죄의 제바 다나시 다 계획 자와다 제바 디다 삼지 다도 민진바 장승이 심제 탐제라 바 미진 까메기 라 로직게고래 송다 디균진들 삼바인데 마겐 심제 탐제네 다 된다 충중질이 의미네야 다 딘디진 아주 우다연라라 서버 진바 동고유나 다 된다 전부
맞아.
터도 가르쳐 동해매베 대화 담바 토야 디체도 있나? 아다 랑게 류런지 뒤숨사베 개와다 잡아 탐제베 장승이 심제 탐제라 머진 까메게 로직게 용거래스.
맞아.
아다 드린두산에 디준zem데네 가르쳐다 디 코라 딘제게베 동심선한다도 진심선한다도 다들이야 림베시도 라고레스.
라서
충분히야 첨벌이야 라고요다.
라서
변제 만든 지 가시네 가르래 네야 림베시 라비야.
라서
뭐라 론 건 콤베디오.
라서 Then in terms of the ultimate generosity,
디갑라 네 퇴바지잖아. 계획 자와다 제바사들라 지 구규지 여버자.
라서
변나 랑그 류론주 뒤숨사베 계획 자와다 제바 탐제 심제 탐제 진바 땅나.
라서
디장 디 가르래 디부 가르다 개와를 지 용거로 봐. 배유 용거로 봐. 정일 디 배유 용거로 봐.
라서
디 배유대야 아니 심제 탐제를 진바다.
라서
랑 다도 미지바 심제 탐제를 진바다. 야디 배유대야 심제 탐제를 진바다.
라서
데네 인두스타나 타메베디 개와데 타메베 심제나 봐 진바다.
라서 In terms of ultimate generosity, we consider the highest benefit of all sentient beings. So we're not just considering the benefit of dispelling sentient beings' hunger or thirst, but we're considering the benefit that is the genuine happiness that is free from suffering. And if we were willing previously at the stage of temporary generosity to give away all of our body, speech, and mind, along with all of our roots of virtue, for sentient beings, even to accomplish a small benefit on their behalf, then of course it goes without saying that we are going to be willing here, in the context of ultimate generosity, to give them our body, speech, and mind and possessions, along with all of our roots of virtue, for the sake of accomplishing the great benefit of their attaining the state of liberation. We, at this point, feel so compelled to give these things to sentient beings that it becomes a choiceless matter, that we have no choice but to give all of these things away to sentient beings. Majin kame.
Majin kame is Majin kame is choiceless. Like naturally, you want no hesitation, no reason to don't give. Similar. Generally, you guys. Chunjung la dasha, the chamber tangar bata. So ranking angi automating the young guys. The choiceless and something damn the control.
So we give without hesitation and automatically, feeling completely compelled and moved to enact this giving. Giving all of our body, speech, mind, possessions, as well as our roots of virtue that we have accumulated throughout the 3 times. So this phrase, along with all of our roots of virtue, has a special meaning here. When we give all of our body, speech, mind, and possessions away to sentient beings in order to accomplish the greatest benefit for them, then that, of course, will have a beneficial effect for ourselves in terms of the merit that arises from such an act of generosity. But rather than clinging on to that for ourselves, we in turn give that away as well to other sentient beings. And then the merit that arises from giving that merit away to other sentient beings, we in turn give that away again to all sentient beings. We don't keep it for ourselves. And so this process continues infinitely. We continue giving infinite virtue to an infinite number of sentient beings. So in this case, we're not clinging to ourselves as being ourselves. We're giving everything away, free from hesitation, free from any clinging on to ourselves whatsoever. So this is what we try to train our mind in at this stage, in a gradual way, starting small and then getting bigger and bigger progressively, so that our mind of giving, our capacity to give in our mind, this mind of letting go and extending, becomes bigger and bigger.
Ota tenjebele lo komba ina. Lo rimbashi de komba imina. Tang azu tserabdu gyawa jegang dene bene je dengzin mindorwa shindo. Ji rang la dadu zimbegi dengzin mindorwa da tele pendobr azu pendoa sam tongurwa. Jewa mabu jebre de dengzin do marba. O tene shi didawala lo komba ina. Tene 가서 철없도 깨배 봐도 되네 심지에 카염이 심지에 탐지 가서 팬도 로티 지금 말해서 가르스잖아 전이 다 그러죠 생기 part of others 다들이야 다도 지규직대 현도 지규직이 아마 현고랑 다도 집에난 땅에 가르쳐 심지에 탐지 가르쳐 팬도버 짐바디 런이를 팬도버 짐바디 집어넣지 심지에 탐지 짐바디 다도 짐바디 집어넣지 당 뭐예면을지 아무튼 런이 소소 런이 랑을 류가 있음디 심지에 생기 part of sentient beings or maybe 정신 집어넣지 창조 요인자 뒤균전에 때네 다 깨버는 깨배 파도 진이 가르쳐 전 심진신의 팬도가 로드 미제바 automatically naturally 제수 되네 되네 심진 된주베 가르쳐야 돼 interest som으로다 좋아당 다나지 가르쳐 devotion당 다나지 brave 닝도당 다나지 준주 되게 상물로 깨와는 깨와리아 짐신 공의 공배도 치니
맞아
아니지 탐매배 봐도 편적으로 해서
맞아 If we become familiar with training our minds in this way, then this attitude of generosity will accompany us from lifetime to lifetime, and we will not forego it, we will not relinquish it. Usually what happens is that we don't relinquish our self-fixation from lifetime to lifetime. We might change bodies, but our self-fixation stays with us. But here what happens is that through familiarizing our minds with this attitude of giving, an attitude of letting go, then that openness expands and expands, and it stays with us from lifetime to lifetime. This concern for all sentient beings, equal to the extent of space, will not be forgotten, even though we change lifetimes, even though we change bodies. And the reason why is because by habituating ourselves in thinking of sentient beings in this way, then we become part of other sentient beings. That which we take to be ourselves and that which we take to be others are no longer two separate things. What we consider benefiting ourselves and what we consider benefiting other sentient beings are no longer two separate things. Our own body, speech, and mind, and the body, speech, and mind of all sentient beings are no longer two separate things. And therefore, from lifetime to lifetime, we can have this attitude of care and generosity and concern for other sentient beings stay with us, and not only stay with us, but increase and increase. This attitude of enthusiasm for the welfare of all sentient beings, seeing ourselves as a part of all sentient beings and sentient beings as a part of ourselves, this devotion to the welfare of all sentient beings, as well as bravery and strength of heart and diligence for accomplishing the welfare of sentient beings, will automatically and naturally be with us from lifetime to lifetime, and will keep increasing and increasing until it becomes boundless and infinite.
나도 집에 신유 풍부하대 가져야 태양 근데 가져야 나도 통고 말했어 답변은 지금 나도 집에 신유 풍부하대 나 당보 지게 풍부다 지게 지사로 지 나도 진조요 봐
맞아
이내 뒤 대점이 뒤나 안 나도 집에 신유 풍부하대야 아니 네 가져야 나도 통고 말했어
맞아
나도 뭐 통화 이미 내기 되는 가져야 다 가져 청주선바 로주 채와 남기스 다 청주선바에 가서 왕부 넘부 남기 그런 풍부라 다음에 랑 풍부라 다음에 또봐 지다와 되는 semje 신 저 풍부가 다음에 마도 다 삼제라 민매기 니지 신부见네
맞아
Tene rangi ngoda ludan kamba tongadi jumadabi ko jumadabi tang ngoda luda kamba tongane tendi jumadzi ngoda luda kamba tongane te tongala ani be namkala rimu tiba zamado be ngobo ranzenba tene je tongo mares
Lasso.
tene indusan di junzel dene ta tele ya ji sa chojus mo wangbo nombo namgi luda yala soba jimba tang ko le 다 바지 동해나 서버 가 연구해서 말해.
Lasso.
다 들이 통하게 있어. 다 간다 디디디 야 더비 기처래. 다 간다야. 진짜 연구해서래. 다 간다 조디 다들 좀 년보는 저거 봐.
Lasso.
들이 두산에 장게 다다 다들 좀 신유도 그 풍봉 아버텔라. 나자 다도 다 용도. 다디 왜 가지고 동해가 자와로 치게 봐. 다디 등진기 신유 풍봉하버데 나다 나도 마대버치 대버 뜨메도 심진 시행라 봐 당셔도 아니디 디 슈기 고 등진들이야 뇌제도 치네 고 등진기 신유 다 가르에 라주드산 고 다든지 거래 슈스케 말마
Lasso.
아다 딘르비지 온디 유스
When we've reached that point, the 5 skandhas that were previously the source or the objects of our fixation on a self are no longer seen as the self or me that we were previously so obsessed with. Previously, we observed the 5 skandhas and then thought to ourselves, me, I. But that relationship is no longer functioning because the skandhas that were the reference point for the self-fixation are no longer seen as the me or the I. And so it is said about the bodhisattvas with great powers of wisdom and intelligence that they see the true nature of the 5 skandhas as being selfless, without a self, and they see that true nature just as it is. And because they see this, they can look upon other sentient beings with great non-referential compassion and perform the generosity of the body. So when they perform the generosity of their body, including their head, feet, and what have you, they clearly see that the body that they are giving away is not the self, and that the body they are giving away does not truly exist. It lacks true existence. For them, these great bodhisattvas, this body is simply like making a drawing in the sky.
This kind of generosity.
Lasso.
Bedang goda yana jebati.
Laje.
Nangwara remuti benang.
So this kind of act of generosity, of giving away the body, is like making a drawing in the sky. It doesn't exist as a real thing. And so these bodhisattvas with very sharp faculties are said to not experience any suffering, no matter what type of generosity of the body they perform. But that's a very high level of accomplishment. When we work with the practice of training our mind and giving away the body, we must ensure that we're doing something that is serving as an antidote for our fixation on a self. And the way this practice serves as an antidote for fixation on a self is that we give away what we previously thought of as the self or as the I or me. And this removes the reference object for the self-fixation when we give this away without any hesitation or without any attachment to the body. giving it away to others. It removes the reference points for our self-fixation, and once the reference points for our self-fixation are removed, then the self-fixation is left in a groundless state. And that's what truly undermines the self-fixation. So this is
water okay. Mama Lujin don't say the band dance go ma Lujin ba don't go ma da. Da Lujin ji ma da. Nga gomba shu yin smie ta bo.
Okay.
Ta mi ba te or sta tangi di tango ye sam der ba. Da de ngos mi ba te ne Lujin ka ra ngos mi ba te ne. Pa jimbe me ba che. 다 디주 사회 메바치 크루에 메바치 담을 잡으러 봐. 다디 그 루진 단사를 준다 데려 봐.
라레.
Oh, yeah.
Glad I made that clear.
Yeah. Now clear.
Yes.
Okay. Please drink some water. Okay. I think you are very how to say one-pointed. Then forgot to drink water.
So, this is the practice that we do on the 6th day. First, we give rise to the bodhicitta motivation, and then we do the chanting of the Chod sadhana and engage in the visualization of extending the generosity of our body. And next, we'll go on to the 7th day's practices. So when we say do the practice of extending the generosity of your body, then this is means to do the visualization practice. I asked His Holiness for clarification to make sure that he wasn't instructing us to actually physically practice the generosity of body.
I says no. I'm first gonna resign that. I can't do that. Just visualizing. This time, the first time, you just prepare. You need to the motivation.
Give rise to the motivation.
Yeah, give rise to motivation. Then you do the visualization. That was
you visualize going through, the stages of giving your body and cutting it up and so forth. But just the visualization at this point is sufficient.
I don't take the responsibility. I'm not developer. I can't cure. Okay. That need to be there. That paji the gasway. Give us our Chonshu Chodong or the nation. Oh, need to be there.
Lasso.
Watch at it.
Lasso.
Then watch at it. 지당기 통탄이를 자완이 중도와 로정 디주나.
라서.
하나도 최념을 제외 가려야 배지 통마를 채고야지. 죽도 채고야지. 니어스.
라서.
통마를 채고야 돼 가르스나. 아니 굴론디. 세다가 계심을 했어. 다만 제거해야 돼. 뭐하도 계심을 했어. 다 굴론데 계시의 균선 가라서는 최수 로만도 사디 굴론데 토대 오르바. 티버 지중선에 굴론 개발돼. 다는 신지 가르쳐야다. 드네 유산 디균선 때네 최수 로만도데 굴론 다마다 굴론데 최도 튜머튜 텔라다고 예베 인두산에 굴론데 계심을 해서. 드네 주도 차와데 가르쳐나 뭐하데 계심을 했어. 랑게 사베 개와디 라메 전주 친구 귤 로만도 사디 아니 뭐하들 가셔야 돼. 뭐하들 라레디 거래서. 다지 참 드라이버인데 버지레샤 드라이버. 근데 전주 친구 초를 로만도 사디. 다지 뭐하들 라레디 거래서. 제상 뭐하데 신도 계심을 했어. 데니부티. 최냠는 진진 외에 남의 제도 미루어도 데니부티 임다. 다 바다도 바다는 잠을 먹고 와로다. 무실라. 다 이내야. 고 냠는 잠을 먹고 차르디 이내야. din 죽도 차와 온도 차와든 죽도 차와 니부디 가두이네야. 티버 침비걸로 이내야래. 냐랑 년도랑 게 티버 걸로 이내야래. 냐랑 티버 걸다 당와다 시다 자유기 말보다. 다베 조조 티버 침비 계절을 줘. 다 티버 침비걸로 이내야래. 상가 도지 티버 규이 티버 걸로 이내야. 지비 티버 걸로 이내야래. 가두이네야. 디 냠는 그지 샤비네야. 왜나 지 많이 쓰지 마도 마되베네야. 다 토명 그래서 굴론데다 죽 뭐하더니 계셔 버렸어. 등이 창나? 난 뒤버치 미쳐 로레서.
On the seventh day, we focus on dedicating the merit, dedicating all of our roots of virtue to supreme enlightenment. So this relates to the key point of the mind training teachings that says that there are two main activities that we should never forget, which are in the beginning and in the end. In the beginning, we give rise to the correct motivation, and in the end, we dedicate our merit. So with regard to the correct motivation in the beginning, it said that whether our Dharma practice becomes actual Dharma or not depends upon the motivation that we give rise to. It is our motivation that also distinguishes whether our practice is a practice of the lesser vehicle or the greater vehicle. So therefore, having a correct motivation in the beginning is very important. And in particular, if we want our practice to become genuine Mahayana practice, then we need to give rise to the motivation of bodhicitta, the desire to achieve awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings, limitless as space. And then, in the end, we dedicate the merit. Whatever roots of virtue we have accumulated, we dedicate that to the achievement of unsurpassable enlightenment for all sentient beings. And it is this dedication of merit that determines whether our practice will lead to the result of our arriving at the unsurpassable ground or not. So the motivation determines whether our practice will be genuine practice, and the dedication determines that we will arrive at our intended result of practice. So in this way, the dedication of merit is like the driver of the car. So these are two extremely important points, the motivation in the beginning and the dedication of merit at the end. These two things are something that we should never forget. In between those two, there's a lot of different instructions. In between those two, there's a lot of instructions that we could practice in the context of the main practice, but those are going to change from circumstance to circumstance. But always, we should proceed our practice with the motivation of bodhicitta and conclude our practice by dedicating the merit for all sentient beings. This is the case whether we're practicing Mahayana per se or practices of secret mantra Vajrayana, whether we're practicing the causal vehicle or the resultant vehicle, even if we're just saying one syllable of a mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, we should precede it with a motivation of bodhicitta and conclude it with the dedication of merit.
Da 대야 진바 대야 전주서바 소수의 기회 뒤에 류가이 숨기다 가주래 자와지 제베이네 심정이 된도 마당은 중세기 하면서
중세기 하면서
중세기 하면서
라서
ben tikwa simbi lamgi ne simasin saade chanju simge gyulge maje shaawar
라서
chanju simge saade da zo simji shen tyondor ba
라서
simji shen da garjure 상계 고마 토반 되면 론 드리 shaawar ba
라서
pardo keshin chame sumji chosa de chosa du zanji kuranji chanju simba kuranji garjure da garjure 야보지용아 체도 많이 봐. 심제 탐젤단 잡아셔원. 심제 타예벌은 잡아샤안. 진제가 도한다 가르쳐. 심제기 된도 심제기 된주 되게 여러 봐. 다른 엄버로 잡아 상게네냐. 되네 추이고를 요함에 봐. 한염지 심제 탐제기 된도 구송토 연대 칠레의 제베 연대한 탐제 강라 건규배 끼지점 예와메바 첸다 간다 가수 요레스 슈도 요레
라서
데니두산의 디균센데네 딱 간다 안주지 상계기 공부하 토야 돼야 신경 셔도록 와
라서
제가 데리야 엄마지 고 기시야죠 어디 가사다 상계 산에 딱 가르쳐지 미가시 삼등으로다 아주 상계할 매주 쉬위체 다 상계 산 가르쳐 버렸다 레가르 제사를 했다. 다 상계산 레가신 지규어다. 이거만 지시에 엄마디 배제나는 요래. 아주 심진디 코충을 상계의 코아침벌을.
라서
심진디 내가베 코아래 상계디 가르쳐래. 그터도 코아서만 터도 코아서네 좋습니다. 뒤 뒤나 가르쳤잖아. 상계의 거두이는 코알 슈고레스.
라서
심진디 니질다 가르쳐 상계의 뒤지 용거레스. 심진나 심진하면 상계의 지시어 봐.
라서
그래도사 심진변 가사를 죽주비나 그 상계의 뒤지 용거레스.
라서
이나 상계다 코알 대어레스. 제가 상계 오피스디 코알레스.
라서
상계에서다 오피스 코알라 대네.
라서
다 job 내가 잡았다. 제상 가시에 디스크도 전주선마디서 상마게 기부여 알아서 고소 전주선마디서
라서
그래서 상계나야 제규 심정이 되마다 요 말았어.
라서
근데 상마게 코는 심정이 된제 줍디 알았어. 갈라가서 줍디 이주사 전주선마디서 로대고 알았어.
라서
다 임비네야 지당게야 심정이 된 가르쳐다 줍주기 차네 개발 첨부 유했음으로 봐.
라서
아주 소수기 원남지 심정이 된 줍이나 아니 this fingers 이나 마차와 되면 참고.
라서
전주선 받남지 심정이 신된 줍이나 폐체와도 되어 버려 그래. 가식 되면 버려 그래.
라서
상계기 된 심정이 된 줍이나 되어 여반 바식마도 되면 봐. 조세지 처음 만났어.
라서
디 균전에 때는 가시 땅하산지 이명아 코아랑 대우에 심진 되는 최고에 땅하산 산지 이명아 코아랑 대우에 심진 되는 최고 수도와
라서
디 가시 라마 가시 디 디스 진짜라 삼다데 디스 록도온도 차로 년가요 알았어
라서
가라서는 산개비나 심진이 되는 주야게 배 가서 뉴바체요 알았어
라서
다당 아주 코알네 디심베 걸리야 지당 심진이 되는 루토레데 니네 심정이 되는 매매 준주를 지다 배 탐제 되어야 버지 교도야 가라 가버려 들송도와 다 진짜이 개발지래 마도 시 상계나 심정이 되는 주야래 상마계나 심정이 되는 주야래 제가 제주선바디 걸로 대보여 알았어
라서
제가 진짜이 임발 고네 야와 양근배 송지도와 nga khowe tingdu chebala dra chungju gi phaje ma dong shi
Lasso.
nga khowa degi tingdu sa de jigwa tingdu sa de khowar di ngoma ngeshra tingdu ya ta del tingdu de kujur de mangbo shira yesre bena ji kajoe ta tingdu sa kana byogo sokta di bena chondo jinan chonan dorjin dojgo sabjeb입니다 고마 쇠난 로 코에 띵을 대대긴 수 소에 띵을 중로로 와 지고 잡으이나
Lare.
뭘 잡으이는 난고 쇠간이야 내용 거로 와 봐 지고 잡으이나
Lare.
낭 동바 있는 쇠간 내용 거로 와
Lare.
지고 잡으이나 마쇠 띵을 마 사로로 봐
Lare.
어째서 앞에 코에 띵을 대기 코에 띵도 도는 시도 소에 띵을 봐 지원는 시 nga chowe kowe gi ting de gi is da chengju gi bhaje ma dong xi gam de le ya da de gar cha ra sa buddha hot
Lasso.
da ba kham gi jana buddha hot the buddha hot de kero le ma hosta you're my enemy nga de is call buddha hot mos ni ji yor ngurchi
Lasso.
da ji gar sa na 고 심진기 되는 유나고 가지고 심진기 되는 두야 마도 매비 인사 쳐주선 발 콜 내비 이내야 로데버야래 상게비 이내야 로데버야래 다 간다 로데반디스야데 쳐주선 발 로데마데디 심진 라 현된도 유르마 유르사 때마도 신 로데마데 신다 가요 말와
Lasso.
드네 두산에 다디 진들 심다 아들 십시오 부다 호디 감게 아버죠 와
Lama kashe la loto yong sigres.
말바르 some teacher
Lana. Some teachers.
some teacher says maybe if you think like that maybe they have some sort of wrong views we get 년가요 그랬어
Lasso.
그래서 거할 dating is like you just that
Loto chagi mares.
차 년가 오래 숭어레스
Lasso.
이나 디 니주지
Lasso.
다다 니주카
Oh, lasso. Lasso. I'm about ready to perform the generosity of my body now.
It's quite long, I think. I'm sorry.
So it's said about the bodhisattvas that even when they are ordinary beings, when they are training on the path, there is no action of their body, speech, or mind that is not done for the benefit of others, the benefit of sentient beings.
Dedicate, maybe.
That is not dedicated to the benefit of sentient beings. So this determines whether or not we have reached the path of the Mahayana or not. The heart of the path of Mahayana is giving rise to bodhicitta, and bodhicitta is in essence thinking about the benefit of others. Bodhicitta is the desire for all sentient beings to achieve the result of unsurpassable enlightenment. And when we consider the Buddha having gone through the journey of gathering the accumulations for 3 countless eons, he wasn't gathering merit for 3 countless eons just so that things would go well for himself. He was gathering merit for 3 countless eons in order to bring benefit to sentient beings as much as he could, and in order to establish a connection with limitless sentient beings. And furthermore, he wanted to achieve the result of Buddhahood not for himself, but for the benefit of all sentient beings. Then, therefore, in the end, when he attained Buddhahood, it's not the case that his work for sentient beings was done. when he attained Buddhahood, he could then benefit sentient beings by way of body, speech, mind, qualities, and activity in a continuous way. So the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activity of the Buddha are continuously performing the benefit of others, and they are there for the sake of the benefit of others. Therefore, we shouldn't think that when we attain Buddhahood, our work is all done, because Buddhas continue working for the benefit of sentient beings even after they attain Buddhahood. And therefore, it's said sometimes that the state of being a sentient being is the small samsara, but the state of Buddhahood is big samsara. That's because the duration of being a sentient being is limited. There will come a time when a sentient being transforms into the state of a Buddha. And then you'll be free from samsara. So from that perspective, samsara is limited. It's just a small samsara. But when you attain the state of Buddhahood, then you're working for sentient beings all the time, continually. And at that point, samsara is your office. And working within samsara is your job.
Permanent office.
Permanent office in samsara. And
we should give permanent samsaric milakasa.
People?
No. American Mishadile pass Kasa.
Oh, citizen.
Citizen.
Oh, citizenship.
Citizen medal for the Buddha. Yeah.
So the Buddha becomes the permanent citizen of samsara.
Yeah.
So with this value of helping other sentient beings in mind, some bodhisattvas say that they don't want to achieve Buddhahood because they want to remain in samsara in order to benefit sentient beings, because all that they value is benefiting other sentient beings. However, there have been some teachers that say that there's a danger that you would develop a wrong view.
No, it's something like, it's okay to think like that, but actually they also have some difference.
So it's okay to think like that, but on the other hand, there's also a difference between Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the way that they accomplish benefit for other sentient beings. So if we start with ordinary sentient beings, we could say that they can try to benefit other sentient beings, but they're only going to accomplish a very limited benefit of sentient beings, of beings' benefit. They can't accomplish a great benefit of sentient beings. Then, when you're a bodhisattva, some of the things that you do will accomplish great benefit for sentient beings, but then some of the things you do will still be of no benefit to sentient beings. But then when it's said when you're a Buddha, then everything that you do will be of benefit for sentient beings, and no action will be devoid of benefit. So from that perspective, the state of Buddhahood is the supreme way to benefit sentient beings, because you're continually benefiting sentient beings, and nothing that you do is not benefiting sentient beings. But the bodhisattvas value staying in samsara so much because of their concern for the welfare of sentient beings, and that's what puts their mind at ease. So nothing puts the bodhisattva's mind at ease except for benefiting sentient beings. And in relation to this, the master Gutsangpa...
No, Yangunpa.
Oh, sorry, Yangunpa. Sorry. The master Yangunpa said, he had a verse that said that I'm going to remain in the depths of samsara, and my enemy of Buddhahood, I ask you to stay away from me. So he considered Buddhahood his enemy because he was worried that if he attained Buddhahood, he would have to leave samsara and part from sentient beings, whereas he wanted to remain in samsara and
다들
always...
유진 가라서는 파지 상계는 지시와 초직을 내게 삼으로. 디가 셔면로.
And the reason for this is he was thinking that if
근데 남도 계획 냠볼.
that he had a thought that arose that Buddhahood might be one-sided peace.
남도 계획으로 남도. One-sided peace the 말봐. 이내야다 근데 남도 계획으로.
So Buddhahood, of course, is not one-sided peace, but it's possible that we could have a thought that it is.
Wrong thought, wrong view.
An incorrect view that Buddhahood is one-sided peace. But if you were to think that Buddhahood was one-sided peace, then young Gumpa makes this aspiration that his enemy of Buddhahood would stay away, so that he could remain in samsara for the benefit of sentient beings.
다 봐진 얘기시야 차송스 니마 뒤마데 제인스다 모아차르 제인스레 드레인스탄다디 샤보 듄자 질이야 드디지다 가르에 쥐던 대외 냠내는 드 셰투나
라서
야보 연구였으스 다대야네 에 나라 니 랑수르 마이바 대야지 그 요거만 남게다 송도 좀 많이 가서 셰야래 제자들 냠내 셰비나 펜도 용거를 삼배 라와이스
라서 So I think that's all I have to say for this teaching session. And what we've been discussing is the outlines of practice for a one-week retreat in connection with the practice of Chod. And I haven't just made these instructions up myself. I've relied on the teachings of the four bear masters of the Kagyu lineage and explained them to you. And if you take these instructions and put them into practice, then I think that it will be very beneficial, and I hope that it will be very beneficial for you.
Homework. This is permanent homework. But I don't like to do homework, actually. I don't do English homework. That is the that Tomadelia and a bit too shy, Tsikashi. You Tsikashi. As you pay get the Giori, sing some Jews, Larry. In a choose you see.
But you shouldn't think that you can just do this one-week retreat one time and think that you've accomplished your assignment. This is not, it's not just like a one-time homework in that way. This is permanent. So it's not...
Battery, maybe.
Maybe it's the battery. It's not something where you just do it once and then you're done. It's a permanent assignment. Although I should admit that I don't like homework, and I never do my English homework. So to conclude, I'd like to express a few words of gratitude. In Tibetan, we have this phrase, I'd like to say 2 or 3 words, but if you say that, you end up talking for an hour.
Teaching one senator, the region of the Gugan, Sawe, Gugan of the other Sutim Eli. Alioni. It's very difficult to speak. Nay. Oh, yeah. American accent. Italian. I don't know. It's okay. Morang Jeza Terea Mise. That Morang is Kazu, Yawan Gamaba, Kundi Jurubala. That never chat ever. That is some shimmer in game, which I share. Cheza and Tajina Jikashwe. ngarang da ji kama bu gun ju din ba re sa da min ji yin sa tin je thon ne yang ger je ba cha ne a ra ba du de de ka ju ji marai ne ji ju thol ya be thonar ba sha dos thona and de ju sa ne ju ge be ka ju ji che ba minyam gyun zin cha be ka ju de sim ge lasam chim dos
Lasso?
and de liang just for shoes
Lasso?
ane korangi de lega walk disulinia maung mutu ni ngarang jabjo chetube joyous
Lasso?
and labar du tari de ane chuge wanda garjwe da ji teaching ro cha kogab chungbdi ngarang gego ne shabina di geba sambo yin sambayus
Lasso?
that je geba sambo yoade zo de morangi garjwe de request
Lasso?
제비 인자 될 때는 충분히 인상에 미세 도치 쉬야이스
Lasso?
예 가상마 쉬브는시 지당 안 충분히 죄를 가버려
Lasso?
양질 디지 레긴 대반도 예사를 삼바로 되게 the feeling 도 초아로 용도
Lasso?
이내야 죄응을 자 중요합니다 수고 말에 권변나는 죄 중요하래 년바만도 뭐说错了气呢对啊重要嘛嘞
Lasso?
这王姑娘要嘛嘞
Lasso?
王别可能通不听他们嘞
La?
王个别些要了吧
Lasso?
the first time to see this time
Lasso?
街上看到呀这街上的这个不搞说语言的上不穷不的这个街上马上来没事多去学一
Lasso?
那当然是光打的蛮大了但这就当然是就搞说的呀也比较成个这里的 sponsor 真的
Wow.
那这讲从了呀因为呢多去学一
Lasso? Can interpret gombeng nang du demba danyong use. Inaya.
No.
Lasso demba yang.
Never. No, they're doing the puja every year,
Lasso?
but I'm not attend
Lasso?
puja.
Lasso?
Ah, I mean,
The main condition for all of these teachings and the empowerment of Chod to have taken place was the request of Lama Tsultrim Alayone. Lama Tsultrim had a very strong connection with the previous Karmapa, the 16th Karmapa, and all of you know about this and know about her, so I don't need to say a lot. But since I have been given the name of the 17th Karmapa, she felt a wish to reconnect with Karmapa through making a dharmic connection with me. And she has had a great devotion toward the teachings of Chod for a long time. She has been doing a lot of work to preserve and maintain the continuity of the teachings and practice of Chod. And she has a very pure heart motivation in doing this, which I deeply rejoice in. I genuinely hope to be able to support the work that she does in this regard in a continuing way in the future. And from a personal perspective, I feel grateful to her because this was my first opportunity to confer the empowerment of Chod. So I feel very fortunate to have had this opportunity, and I wouldn't have had this opportunity if it were not for her request. And therefore I'd like to extend a special note of gratitude to her and say thank you. So from the time I was young, I had a great interest in the practice of Chod. I felt some kind of connection with it, like it was some type of karmic connection. But I didn't have the opportunity to practice Chod. I never had the opportunity to confer the Chod empowerment. They did the ritual of Chod in Supu Monastery every year, but I did not attend this. And in fact, this empowerment here was the first time I even saw the empowerment text. So I'm very happy that this opportunity has come to pass. And I would also like to extend my gratitude to Tara Mandala for all of the work that they did to organize and have these teachings happen here, as well as all of the sponsors that have made this teaching gathering possible.
That name. Dine da drinde kajwe drinde ya jue wang chebe goblia ji xian zombi de xian zombi de da ji kajwe是假设泡沫那真怎么冲他看的配备给我参完了但也家属里面没谁个他说的突然学因가라 했잖아. 이렇게 안수 상무로 가셔야지. 맞아 타는 분이 용체.
맞아.
매주를 전부 제시 용물에. 강에 전부 겨 로선 전부 다 용물에.
맞아.
안 디니 주산 디지 가셔에 쥐 가셔 삼 쥐리야. 강주지 가셔다. 담배 쥐리야베. 자 전부 진당 전부 지지. 용물에. 디니 디 쥐리 접순 줘버리지. 양답을지 제삼 정도
맞아.
근데 나나시 변은 예고를 해야 되지 양 가져가지고 주매 공부선에 배배 주만선 임비네야
맞아.
아니 가서네 진님아 다바르시네 용 지금 권다파 로지데 가서 강에 스타치 배브레
맞아.
근데 인주산에 안다리디 조디 마신에 다리디 완도 조디 female 소마르다 지단의 최샤라 포도 뭐 계속 가면 도와.
라서.
최샤의做什么结果嘛都什么结果인사什么포도 뭐 계속 가면 도와.
라서.
안들인 주산에 이나야 에너지 뭐지 랩기 드라마 소마르다 지 주어디 봐. 인터넷 모주 소마르다 디 에네베 스피릿 소마르다 용아디 뭐지 랩기 드라마 그때 이미지. 뭐지 랩기 드라마디 number 10 mulü지 mulü yimbi 인주스 모이 류 yimbi 인주사 다디 기란수 보메디스를 yim비냐 베지 example 루지 베 베스야 본루지 총으로 봐 디네 인주사 기란수지 우마이네야지 보메 대다부 아니지 지 주변 공방 동부 니에도 정도 소수 yim비네다 지 가르쇼에 양 참서 지조 나로래야지 모든 멤버 지대야로 근데 여비 인자 상상 강조야 지 심슈차 가버도 아니지 심슈차
라서
나 지지 인생 고르대야지 진짜 미용하지 최가 된다는 의미나 뭐 심슈 파는 거야 임베다
라서
단도 최 주베 그런 아제디 체스 저거스라고 도와
라서
다디 양 고바 예배 아제스 온다
라서
최 루투그래냐면 뽑아당 아제디
라서
공부해도 당고르마도 땅아 보면 인자 강가제도 좀 말했으면 되잖아.
라서.
다들 최를 바제리 돼야 말해.
라서.
근데 인주산에 다들 이제 심쇼 파야로 아셔도 안들이 제발.
라서.
제발은지 인자주인의 도난제지 단대지 김고를 찍도 좀 더 버려들 충분해.
라서.
네 인주산에 단대지 지 야와 탐지 제 상계의 전주선바 탐지라 예배 최바를 제섬 정도라 가버도 에너지 마질라비 드라마라 사베지 주규베 라마 탐지가 토니아바로 용거를 삼바로 근데 예
라서
안데 인두산에 마음발이 임비냐 조디 가쇼에 다들 지금 주역이 다 규바디 마체베체네 안 냠술 라니 다다 콘도 슈바는시 조디 가쇼에 다 주주스네 안 조디 다든지 알아주베 로 장체 수수에다 릉아 이수 개회 싸워다 제가 탐지 먹을 심지어 탐지게 된다. 오토바이를 고고 알았어.
Lassa? I'd also like to thank all of the people that came here from various parts of the world, from all directions. Most of you who traveled here from abroad came from a really long way away. And you have done this through taking on great hardship and making great effort to arrive here. You know, going under at great expense to yourself. And I think this is a really great example of going for refuge to the Dharma, because the reason that you came here was because you considered the Dharma and the teachings of Chod in particular to be very precious, to be very valuable. And seeing this, you have come here. So I think this is a good case of genuinely going for refuge to the Dharma. And then also, we have our gathering of nuns who have come to these teachings. They have also gone through hardship to come here every day and go back to their residence every night. And so I would like to thank you all for being here. And with regard to the declaration that these teachings or this program is being provided primarily to female practitioners, it's important to understand that in the Dharma there is no gender. The Dharma is about working with your mind, and mind does not have any gender. Mind is not male, mind is not female. Nevertheless, on the other hand, the teachings of Chod that we have been receiving here come to us from the female lineage of Chod. And this comes to us from the great master Machig Labdren. It is through her kindness that we were able to receive these teachings. She was a person who appeared in the form of a woman's body. And from that perspective, she can stand as a very inspiring example to women who wish to practice the Dharma, because using the body of a woman, she attained the state of full accomplishment. Sometimes in general society, women are regarded as lower, and because of this collective attitude on the part of society, sometimes women can feel discouraged. But when it comes to the time of practicing the Dharma, we should not feel discouraged at all. In fact, we should feel more encouraged and more inspired, thinking about examples such as that of Machig Labdren. So when we practice the Dharma, and particularly when we are women practicing the Dharma, we should actually not be humble about our capabilities. We should be proud of our capabilities. We should call upon our pride and strength of heart. And when I say pride, I mean beneficial pride, useful pride. And think to ourselves, I can do the practice of the Dharma. We should actually have more of this pride when we practice the Dharma. If we think to ourselves, I can't do it, I'm not capable of doing it, then that's not a good thought to have. It's an obstacle to our practice of Dharma. So in order to further inspire you in your practice of Dharma and help you to connect with your confidence in your ability to practice, I have offered these teachings. And I think that our gathering together in this way will become a pleasing offering to all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. it will become a pleasing offering to Machik Lapdran and all of the lineage masters of Chod. So it's important, therefore, for you to hold these teachings, to ensure that the continuity of these teachings is not broken. And you can do that by putting these teachings into practice, continuing to train your mind and continuing to engage in the practice with great effort in body, speech, and mind. And then, of course, in the end, dedicating the virtue to all sentient beings, our mothers, limitless as space, is very important.
That's me. Andre 가수 직접 왕차로 드레다 가수에 난 비게 다 주들이 가수다 야알레네 에네다 주들이야 담버 주들이 바 니만 가시 다와진이 되 계절에
라성
아직 데데데 로준이 돼
라성
정강 permanent 정강
라성
야 permanent 정홍
permanent. Oh, okay.
감게 it's okay.
Awesome.
permanent 정강 좀 차브레 제자야 참석고 가서지 고난주비 규규디 시다 very kind to us. 뭔가 소리네. 다이미네 참석양 가서고 규규디 거르데 거르 가서지 대서 쳐보 차리어래 다서 쳐보르지 고난소리지 초가 잘해 먹고 싶다나 요래 양 가서 양디 나래 양배 가면 비밍이 주디 양 주들이야 예 양지 가르르데 가르르 프로그램을 좀 지어봐
라서
야제 디자인 참sam지 디 스페이스
라서
코라코마 거르치 딘 당만다는 비치 어디 거봐
라서
제자 안다리데 도저는 비치데 마르시네 베지 네 웬바 냠가와 다바지 냥아 뒤잖아 아버지에서
라서
냥아 부디지스 디아이스다
라서
단 디제질이야 좀치 대서들이 스텝
라서
안디나로야 아주 된 좀아 그때 가수에 배 가수 인파메디 센터도 고급으로 찾아지 남의 인두산에 다들 미는 가수에 좀치리야 미세 아 사명원에 가수에 투지 쉬어봐 그렇지 쉬어봐
라서
아니디 가수에 지당다 컴퓨터 붙이 고고만에 컴퓨터 붙이 고고만체
라서
되는 붙이래 내가는 주의를 붙이래 나는 동대 망고 왔다 동대
라서
아주 좀 메디테이션 민전에 겨 랍시마다 다 간다를 전에 고난주 성으로 가셔야지 영감을 보고 주로 봐라 규모 많이 배워야 돼 봐. 제제샤.
라서
당 나랑 잡지 비나 나랑 다 패밀리 잡지. 루바가 주임비 계제래.
라서
루바가 주.
라서
근데 유산에 다 배는 게 아마 루바가 주. 오네 추메들다.
라서
루바가 주 잡아 지단질라. 바지 아마 그 루바가 주 생고서 해서 말해. 생고하러 ngan ruba gaji nga khamba gari sama jorbada semna that thing amal be me ji yorda very strong how to say devotion and also identity ta ruba gaji taba juma dis pache nge amal lobjong chegos sa se da kan dire jore jesa dinde gdabki ngarangi beneya da karjueji 가르주에 튜모메 베데바르 주에데 도시인스 안드린 다린디데 게바 상보 총원디 가보시라 총송스
라서
드린데 좀 붙이다는 아주디 곰베게다 레제바당 나는 데데 다리 그냥 상원을 해야 돼 니네 웬바 인자다 사가르지다 시다면도 와 그래서 칼라데 상원을 해서 드리셔야 돼
라서
지주 마르바요네 키란조를 바지 저거 말았어
라서
야나 취지 야나 도구 지송으로 나도 취도 도구 니가 녜테 두고 매선 마베 다다리 아 마벌로즈기 가르송에서 밀랄라 다리 지나서는 최슈한도스
Lesson.
칼라산도스
Lesson.
이나 마발로 제거리나 마르베 야나 최제그레
Lesson.
칼라제그마네
Lesson.
야만 칼라제그레 최제그마네
Lesson.
나 지나서 상만 람루시아 주시
Lesson.
되네 인두스탄에다 이게 내가 지금 상만을 투지 최슈아인스
Lesson.
거기 최슈아인스
Lesson.
안데 상매기 딱 간단 얘기다 공주시면 상매기 냠도 가서 띵중 가서다 냠도 루루지 매주시에 가서 띵진 띵중기 규현 사발을 되네 다른디 총벌해
Lesson.
내가 인두스탄에 단디 베가서 니들이 총벌디 니 가와지다 자친부지 이상배 매바 제비나 근데 전다 전부 연구를 성도스 나한테 들어가서 지금 남주는 신 안에 인상바를 지든지 지기 니가 와도 전시에 삼로 마다나 내 배미시라 용 말았어
Lesson.
나한테 교랑기 폴드 니 폴드 말았어
Lesson.
나한테 내려지
Lesson. Tani come to Rinpoche ki kukong mare. Come true.
제지 그러는 거
Lesson.
you just translate then I will correct
Okay.
it's not correct I can't say correct to you but it's like help
Help. Yes.
support
Support. So I'd also like to say a few words of gratitude about the venue that we have enjoyed for these past days, for these Chod empowerment and teachings. When I first arrived in Dharamsala, I was housed at Gyuta Monastery, and the original plan was that I would stay at Gyuta Monastery for maybe a few days or a couple months. But it turns out that I've been there for 12 years, and now maybe we can call Gyuta Monastery my permanent hotel. But Gyuta has been extremely kind to me. On the other hand, Gyuta is a great seat of its own tradition, and they have their own ceremonies and programs to attend to. So it's a challenge for them sometimes because I have the name of Karmapa and I have my own programs to carry out. And sometimes there are challenges with negotiating the space and how the space will be used. And there's not always a space available to have large programs on my behalf there. To avoid those difficulties, we were very fortunate that His Eminence Dordzong Rinpoche has offered this monastery as the venue for this program. This monastery is in a secluded place, in a very beautiful environment. In fact, I think that I should write a poem about how beautiful this monastery and its environment are. Rinpoche established this seat here for his lineage, and it has provided a wonderful environment for our teachings to happen. Therefore, I would like to thank Rinpoche from the bottom of my heart. And I think that I have a special connection with Rinpoche and the many lamas of the Drukpa Kagyu tradition. The previous Kamtrul Rinpoche and many Dokden practitioners.
No, something like previous Kamtrul Rinpoche,
Yes.
Dordzong Rinpoche,
Yes.
Chögyar Rinpoche.
Yes.
They also have Dongdens.
Okay.
Dongdens is that they check. Tesorida Dongden.
Yes.
Ya Dongden kan ha ma ne ya.
Okay. Okay. So, the previous Kamtrul Rinpoche and
Yes.
Chogyal Rinpoche and their Tokdens
Yeah.
all had a very special connection with the 16th Karmapa. And I also personally have a connection with the Drukpa Kagyu lineage because my mother is
My
actually
family is
yes,
sort of Drukpa Kagyu.
my family is Drukpa Kagyu.
My mother is very strong Drukpa Kagyu.
Yes. She identifies herself very strongly as Drupa Kagyu.
And very strong Khampa girl. Stronger than ordinary monk, Drupa Kagyu monk. He have the identity and devotion.
So
I just tell them, ordinary monks, they can, how to say?
Take lessons from my mother.
Yeah.
So in any case, I'm very thankful for the fortunate opportunity to have had this program happen here at Dordzong Monastery. And I'd also like to thank all of the staff of the monastery and all of the people who are working to make the meals here possible. We've been so lucky because this monastery is in an isolated area. There's not so many restaurants around. And so many people have worked very hard to provide us with meals. And that's really a lucky situation to be in, because if we were studying with Marpa, then he would say either you're going to get the Dharma or you're going to get food, but you're not going to get both. These two things shouldn't be mixed together. But we have gotten both Dharma and food, so we're very, very lucky. And all of a great many causes and conditions have come together for this program to be possible. This is a demonstration of the reality of interdependent arising, the coming together of many different factors that have made this possible. And looking at it in this way, we can see that opportunities like this are extremely rare, difficult to find, and are therefore very precious. So if we have an attitude and mindfulness of the preciousness of situations like this and opportunities like this, then there will arise great benefit from our engagement with these opportunities. If we just take a mundane attitude with no appreciation for the rarity of such occasions, then we won't get any benefit from engaging in opportunities like this. But that would be your fault, not mine.
And thank you very much. You also. You should say thank you very much.
Oh. Sorry.
I'm waiting for that.
You're only
You are not a good fan. Oh,
Thank you very
fine.
much.
Oh, okay.